Our desire is this nation's happiness and to serve humanity.
It was not so long ago when the country of Turkey seemed on a path to where newspapers and broadcasters would exercise the freedoms of a full democracy. That all changed in recent years after a governmental corruption scandal surfaced. Raids swept across the country. Law enforcement officers who served as whistleblowers and journalists who reported on the corruption scandal were swept up. Key targets were the Zaman, a newspaper, and the Samanyolu Media Group, a part of the Turkish broadcast community reporting on the scandals. At the time of the raids, Hidayet Karaca served as the CEO of Samanyolu Broadcasting Group. He, along with others, and key members of the government were thrown in jail. Prior to these events, Hidayet Karaca and his family remained low-key and out of the public eye. But now the Karaca name is a familiar one. In this visit to his home, we learn about the man once tasked with delivering the news, who himself is now in the news.
Hidayet is generally a very busy person. He is someone with a passion for working. He is full of energy and conscious of his many responsibilities. As a result of this, he is content with working around the clock. So as a family, we've adapted our lifestyle to keep pace with him.
He never made us upset in his youth. He always worked. He didn't even go to get his report card. His mother went to get it as he went to work.
Hidayet was very attached to us. He would never want to be separated. Starting at a young age, he always watched after his sisters. My son is young, but his sisters are older. However, he was always like a big brother to them. We can never forget how caring he was. He always tried to protect what he cared about.
As responsible broadcasters, we've always prioritized our country's interest, because this is our country. We are the people of this nation, of this land.
Hidayet is always willing to help me keep our home nice and clean. For instance, after we finish dinner, he always offers to rinse the dishes, and if tea is not ready, he immediately brews it. He is also sensitive with his children. From feeding to dressing, he is actively assisting them. He definitely doesn't carry a patriarchal attitude towards gender roles. We try to do everything together. The first years of our marriage, I can say that cleaning together was something like our hobby. Very neat. He is also extremely accommodating when it comes to guests in our home. He enjoys inviting friends over, having soup, food, socializing, and sharing tea. The doors to our home are always open to guests, no matter what time of day.
He was like this when he was a child, too. We would give him an allowance, and he would say, "Mom, let's go get this first. Let's do this first." Whenever I was doing the dishes, he would say, "Mom, let me rinse them."
We would go outside and play soccer. We would play wrestling games when he comes home. Sometimes I would visit my dad at the office and help him there.
What would you mostly hear from your father?
He would want me to work hard. He always wants me to be successful.
Why do you think he wants you to work hard?
so that I could help others. He would want me to be a good person.
The people know who we are. So does God. What's important is to be on the side of the truth, the good, and the principles of democracy.
Hidayet is very careful when it comes to justice and law. For years, he told me we can't live like others. Since we represent this institution, we have to be very cautious. We had a company car 15 years ago, and we rarely used it unless it was absolutely necessary. I would never call a housekeeper. He would always say, "I will assist with wiping the windows when I'm available, but we have to have a practical lifestyle at every point." This way, when people look, there's no discord. He lived a humble life. In fact, our neighbor says she saw him downstairs taking out the trash, just like everybody else. He was an ordinary person living a simple life. So when people look at him, they really see that he is a normal, everyday person and lives a simple life like everyone else.
Efendim, niçin gözaltına alındınız? In the biggest political story of Turkey, the sense of a witch hunt towards those not aligned with the AK party continues. And on the anniversary of the December 17th and 25th anti-corruption scandals, feelings have escalated to a new level of animosity. In a scene which perhaps even fiction writers could not imagine, writers of a fictional soap opera were also arrested and charged with crimes against the state, based on a few lines of dialogue. As the events play out, this true-to-life jaw-dropping turn of events has left many in shock. At the top of the list, the Karaca family.
Since there's no case to be made, they're trying to make up a case, using the series that aired on our station.
Of course, we were very surprised that day. When he saw the names on the list, especially names of scriptwriters and young women irrelevant to what's going on, he put his own life aside. He was very upset for those people that night. We also didn't want our son, Emin, to be affected by these events because he's a very sensitive child. It was around 9 p.m. when he said, "I will go with my mother and you can come to the station after you put the children to bed." I put our son to bed around 1 a.m. and then I went to the studio to join my husband.
We are innocent. We haven't done anything wrong, and we do not have any hidden accounts or agendas other than the love we have for our people.
Mr. Karaca was so calm. He prepared his luggage from home and waited at the studio with his wife, mother, and father. They even got together with the other people at the studio and waited for the police like they were at a wedding. Meanwhile, his son, Sitka Karaca, one or two friends, and I went to the house to wait in case the cops would show up there. We prepared tea and waited for the police. It was around 6:30, 7 a.m. when the police came to Mr. Karaca's home. But what an arrival. There were 15 to 20 armed police.
I opened the door. They asked if this was Mr. Karaca's house. Yes, it was. I asked if I could see their identification. The police officer showed me his jacket and said, "It reads police." I told him I'm the son of a media manager. We film soap operas everywhere. They sell those jackets everywhere. I want to see your ID. I also mentioned my identity as a law student. He said, of course, and presented me with his ID. Then I asked for a search warrant and the allegations. On what basis did you come here? They handed it to me. There were offenses attributed to him a paragraph long, starting from organizing a terrorist organization to its administration. There were many defamatory accusations made. I told the police officer, "You came to the wrong address." They looked at each other and asked, "What do you mean, wrong address?" I told them the person they were seeking is not my father. This house does not belong to the person that you were looking for.
I wasn't with him. My father didn't tell me so I wouldn't be upset. I stayed at my grandmother's house that night. I had no clue about what was going on. They hid everything from me. I found out in the morning when I turned on the TV.
What did you think then?
I was upset, of course. My father is an honest man. I would have never imagined this would have happened.
We were never concerned because we were sure about our stance. The situation that has been occurring for the past year and a half was something we were already living through for the last 6 months. Hidayet was always ready for this, and I stood right by him. We never imagined that injustice would go this far, because he is a figure who represents media and heads dozens of channels.
His whole life was well known, right?
Yes, everything he did was transparent.
Unfortunately, some networks announced this as an operation against parallel media. What does that even mean?
He would never tell us anything so we wouldn't be upset. I thought they came to visit us. He said, "Mom, I have a meeting. See you later." He left with Sitka that day. My daughter-in-law and daughters hid this from me. I was preparing the table for some guests that day. Apparently, they were already devastated. They hugged me and left like they were going out for a walk. They told me all about it in the morning.
Yani bize hiç giderken sanki bir gezmeye gidiyormuş gibi sarıldı gitti.
I would never have imagined such a situation. I would never have imagined my son being arrested like this. He didn't commit a crime. He didn't commit any fraud. We were certain. For 20 to 25 years that I was working, I never had to resort to anything illegal to provide for my family. That's why I was never expecting my son to be arrested for such a thing.
My father bid farewell to the neighbors and apologized for causing a disturbance as well. There were thousands of people in front of the television station. He apologized for the disturbance and asked for their forgiveness because he's a very considerate person. From there, we went to the police station together.
Of course, we didn't know these unfortunate events would happen to us. He was under custody for 6 or 7 days, and then Ekrem Dumanlı was released. I started hitting my knees. I realized my son was going to Silivri prison. All our life, our in-laws included, we've never even had to visit a police station.
What are the allegations? What is the evidence? We wanted to find out about the fundamental legal infrastructure which would justify these charges. However, based on allegations of organizing and administrating an armed terrorist organization, they threw him directly into prison on charges from the Anti-Terrorism Bureau. We are still waiting for an answer. When will they start the investigations? We got an idea when we observed the people being arrested. There was a soap opera series called Turkey United on Samanyolu TV, which aired in 2009. When they began interrogating its screenwriter, assistant screenwriter, editor, and some of the technical staff, we realized it had something to do with the soap opera. However, we couldn't understand how they saw a relation with it being part of an armed terrorist organization, attempting to overthrow the government or its constitution, or how it could be considered a threat to freedom or guilty of document forgery. During the winter, they kept Mr. Karaca under custody at the Anti-Terrorism Bureau for 4 days.
There is nothing we cannot account for, because we have never had illegal accounts.
My father recited the Quran. During his 4 days under custody, he finished the whole Quran. He told me he didn't realize how much time had gone by.
The prosecutor finished taking our statement around 11 p.m. Since the only questions they could ask were based on 3 pieces of paper, the interrogation collapsed. Since there were no questions based on a crime, we couldn't provide an answer. The accusations were baseless, and the questions were absurd. The allegations pertain to a TV soap opera which was broadcast in 2009. However, the strange situation is that the voice recordings are from 2013. Now, can you imagine? You air a soap opera in 2009, but you get the mandate in 2013, 4 years after it's produced?
They make up a terrorist organization from a TV series. It's called drama for a reason. Free Turkey, free media won't be silenced.
I went downstairs to the jail cell. My blood froze. I'll never forget that image. The victimization and psychological pressure affected me deeply. It was a very cold environment. It was a December, and there was a draft inside. My father was laying down behind metal bars. I saw Bediüzzaman Said Nursi in this image. It reminded me of how he was locked in a cold jail cell in Afyon. The police officer called out to my father. My father didn't reply. When he called him again and he didn't answer, I turned around completely so my father wouldn't see me seeing him like this. The police officer grabbed my arm and I said, "Dad?" My father stood up and was surprised and emotional. He asked me how I came down here and I explained it to him. We hugged each other in the jail cell. It was an unforgettable and overwhelming moment. I told my father, "We will get you out of here and take you home soon." He said, "My son, this court is not sovereign. They will arrest me." My father said they will arrest him.
Hidayet Karaca, terör örgütü üyesi olmakla suçlanıp tutuklanmalarına karar verildi.
In the morning, Mr. Karaca needed to take his medicine. He asked for a glass of water. The police replied, "Is this the cafeteria?" That was their attitude. We suggested to bring some water if there isn't any. They didn't allow it. They took water to him after we complained to the attorney. It's unbelievable how they treat you, as if you are a wild animal ready to claw them. That's their attitude. They placed more guards around the jail cell than needed. 200 officers and Mr. Karaca stood in the whole floor, 7 stories beneath the ground.
Why do you think your father is there?
Because he spoke the truth, for standing on the side of justice.
Now, do you know what the person outside will want when they are inside? They will want their stuff to continue and their daily lives to go on. I am a 30-year lawyer. People will ask me for things that make them more comfortable. But Mr. Karaca did not want anything other than a thick prayer rug. His books, such as Nursi's Letters and Emerald Hills of the Heart. Also, he asked, if possible, bring his personal copy of the Quran from his office at the network, as he is used to reading that print. He said to me, "If you could bring these, I would be very thankful." All he wanted was a prayer rug and his books.
Until these recent events, Turkey was seen as quite progressive. Yet in this Euro-Asian country, which was on a more democratic path, journalists are arrested, and a government-sponsored witch hunt has seriously shaken the roots of what was thought to be a well-established democratic legacy. Until recently, Turkish politicians, particularly current government representatives, considered Karaca a respected journalist. File tapes show amiable interviews conducted by Karaca with both the president and former president of Turkey. These interviews underscore that their words are exactly the opposite of their actions. What we see are turncoat leaders who are mistreating a man they themselves respected not long ago.
On the ads you've given regarding the constitutional reform, there is something you highlight. As opposed to the law of the superiors, let's have the superiority of the law. How is it that the older system has been abusing its citizens?
Now, that's a very important point.
You give special importance to the freedom of expression. However, there's still a problematic law in the Constitution. The case against Orhan Pamuk has received a lot of coverage since he is a celebrity, but there are many others who are also threatened by this law.
In fact, I have always shown respect for the media and truly believe in the freedom of the press.
Well, people want their friends and family close at times of hardship. If we didn't have our friends, it would have been very difficult. The biggest support in life is to have loved ones. Hidayet always mentions being in the prayers of 5- and 8-year-olds, sending much love in their letters. These are great things. From people of all ages, Hidayet is receiving wonderful support. One of the letters I read the other day said, "I decided to wear only black until you are released. I refuse to take off my black clothing."
After my father was jailed, I saw that he was loved and respected by many people, and they came to support him in front of the police station and Çağlayan courthouse, chanting, "Hidayet, Hidayet." Many people visited us. We received phone calls and letters from all around the world. I once again came to the realization that he is a good person. I told him that I am thankful to God for giving me a father who is a real hero.
How did you feel when you first visited him and saw him behind the window?
I couldn't look at him. He asked me why I wasn't looking at him through the phone. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't bear it. I just couldn't look at his face.
Why couldn't you look at him?
I couldn't bear seeing my son lie in jail without committing any crime.
I was very upset. I am very close to him. I love my father. When I saw him, I was very sad.
Sonra işte görünce bayağı üzüldüm.
What did he do?
He realized that I was upset too. But anyone who saw him in the state would feel the same way. Anyone would be upset.
Herkes üzülürdü.
Açık görüşler ayda bir kere.
Open visitation is once a month, so we always go with the entire family. They wouldn't allow me to sit next to Hidayet, but Emin is allowed to. The rest of us sit in front of him. These visits are like a celebration. Emin always says, "Mom, I feel like it's Eid when I visit." It really does feel like that because we only see Hidayet once a month for an hour. During this time, we understand and appreciate being together. I pray no other families experience what we are going through.
Allah kimseyi ayırmasın.
What did you do with your father during the very first visit?
Koşarak babama sarıldım.
I ran up to him and hugged him. Then we chatted. My father's face was always smiling during the visit. He was always smiling. He would cheer us up. We get support from him all the time, in fact.
Of course, I cried when I saw him, even though I tried not to and wiped my eyes. He said, "Mom, there is no crying." Of course, there shouldn't be crying. We would wipe our eyes when we saw him, but he would still notice. He would always remind us that he was fine and tell us not to cry and to stand up strong. He said these days would pass with God's grace. He still says the same. As soon as we arrived, he asked me if I took my medicine and warned me my blood sugar would raise. He is constantly thinking about us, not himself.
He is always cheerful and positive, as if you were visiting him in his own home and he was going to serve you some refreshments. He always greets you with a smile. The only thing he can't do is serve tea or coffee. He has given himself to God and put his trust in his wisdom. He has such a positive attitude that when it's time for us to leave, we aren't overwhelmed with sadness. In fact, we look forward to the next time we'll see him.
It's like that when we visit him. In Silivri prison, he brings whatever there is at the cafeteria and puts them on the table with his hands like this. He would show joy before we even could. His friends that stay with him are very happy with him. They say Hidayet is very tidy and also very helpful.
He has a high spirit. He would give us support instead. He would tell us things like, "I'm fine, don't worry. Everything will be all right. Take care of yourselves. You're diabetic. You have heart disease." He was trying to support us.
As the story continues to unfold, it could easily seem surreal and thus difficult to explain to the outside world. To those who live in other democratic nations, once this series of events is explained, or even observed, it is challenging to find a quorum to side with the actions of the AK party. Still, the Karaca family continues to passionately share their story, and reactions from around the world side with the jailed journalist and those rounded up in the witch hunts.
Taking away freedom of press, freedom of religion.
Journalists are not enemies of the state.
It's never ended well for any country.
Unfortunately, this case reflects a broader pattern of abuse. 1 year prior to these arrests, allegations of corruption were levied against the Erdogan administration. Subsequently, many prominent journalists have lost their jobs for writing material that was critical of the Erdogan administration. These tactics are unacceptable in a democracy. A free press is central to full access to information for citizens. The attempt by the Turkish government to punish and censor the Turkish media is a matter of deep concern for the United States.
During the media raid operations, there were 3 tough days that I cannot forget. First was when Hidayet was taken into custody and brought to Çağlayan courthouse. That was a very difficult day. Second was the time when the discharge order was switched to Sunday night instead of Saturday night. In fact, my son Sitka said, "Mom, we will bring my father home today." We waited until 8 o'clock that night. Finally, Hidayet's lawyer called us and said not to bother waiting for him and to go home. It was very difficult to return to our home without him. At that very moment, you realize everything is ambiguous and it just doesn't make any sense. Now, they've made a decision. Your husband is released, but you can't take him home. It was very hard for my family to bear that news. The process afterwards moved very slowly. Also, the day I went to visit him after the release order, they still didn't allow me to see him. That day was definitely the hardest to deal with.
Our plea is, "Oh God, your judgment of me is my desire." I learned to submit to God like this from him. Look, I am saying this with all honesty. What was surrender? What was faith? What was to act in accordance with faith? What is to live with those deeds? I learned all of these from him in the last 6 months. I can swear by God, Mr. Karaca showed to us in every visit that you can live by mentioning God's name anywhere and everywhere. I have yet not heard of any complaint from his mouth.
We visit him every week, but because he is between 4 walls there and his freedom is limited, I can't. Otherwise, thank God, my son's spirit is high. He has strong faith. For example, when we opened a small shop, I couldn't attend the evening and night prayers at the mosque. He would say, "Dad, whatever is in our destiny will come to us. You go, do your prayers." This kept my spirits high. He really has strong faith.
Hidayet tells us, "When I know that you are staying strong, I am at ease and my heart is content." He says, despite everything, it is important for me to know that you are at peace. For this reason, above everything, we are abiding by his wishes, and as a family, we will keep our chins up and be strong for him.
I have nothing to hide. We are firm. There is no doubt in our hearts. The ones who were scared run away. There is nothing we cannot account for. Our desire is this nation's happiness and to serve humanity.
What can we do? We have to endure. We are praying to God to let him out soon. That's all we ask for. He's in our prayers.
We always pray as much as possible. His father barely sleeps at night, praying until morning. We all read the Quran, his wife, his mother-in-law, his sister, and the whole family. Our family always prays for him. Whoever we come across is praying for him as well. Everyone speaks highly of him. He is beloved. We entrust him to God first and then to those that are working for his release. We've never encountered something like this before. I hope one day it'll be as if we've never experienced such a thing.
The first week we read the Quran day and night. We kept vigil throughout the night until morning. There was an intense atmosphere of prayer in our home. In an unexpected moment around 11 p.m., Hidayet's lawyer, Mr. Doğan, came to our house. He said Hidayet had a message for me. His note read, "Even though I am still in prison, my thoughts are always of you. I haven't forgotten your birthday." It became an inside joke among our friends after that. They would jokingly say Mr. Hidayet set the bar so high that our wives also expect the same. We were hoping that Hidayet would be home for both Amin and Sitka's birthdays, but unfortunately he wasn't. I hope we can celebrate all of our birthdays together in the upcoming years.
For months, Hidayet Karaca shares cell walls with the police officers who served as whistleblowers in what became the corruption scandals. Even in captivity, their fortitude remains strong. Their belief of innocence strengthens their hope for the future. They remain committed to Turkey's return to democracy, and they share their story with the people of Turkey and the people of the world.
My dear son, Emin, even though I look like I'm behind the window, away from you, you are inside my heart. Hope you have a wonderful birthday. Your strong stance and assistance to your mother makes me very happy. I am proud of you, Emin. May God protect you, your brother, mother, and the rest of our family.
Abine, annene ve ailemizin tamamını nazarlardan korusun.
He wrote this letter on February 29th. My brave son, I first pray for you, your brother, and our family at every prayer. I entrust you all to God. I don't see this confinement area as a jail cell. Rather, I see it as a basin to cleanse myself from my sins. Power and strength have never prevailed before truth. Those who wait with patience and obey God and pray will succeed. Today, people fall for the temporary sweetness of the world. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, I salute my brothers and sisters who will be living towards the latter days of this earth. We believe that on soil that seems dry now, roses will bloom. Ease follows difficulties. The secret behind God's names, the single one, the ever-living, the everlasting, the all-just, and the most holy one will manifest itself. I hug you with longing. I kiss your eyes. I refer you, your mother, and your brother first to God, then to you. Your father, Hidayet.
Hidayet Karaca is giving us a lesson from his prison cell and is truly keeping guard for democracy.
Daddy, I love you very much. I want you to get out as soon as possible. Let's not separate ever again.
I have no doubt these difficult times will come to an end soon. Brighter days are awaiting us. No one should lose hope. I am certain of this fact.